But the other thing that I played is I played co-op with Paige. I played Divinity Original Sin 2. Now, the original Sin, I know, it's a terrible name for this conversation.
Divinity Original Sin.
Was an RPG that came out back in 2014, and its big thing was co-op and how you could have two players argue with each other, and it would have mechanics for that. The problem with that game, and I tried to recently get back into it, is that the writing is just the most boring fucking boilerplate RPG shit ever.
Oh, that'll kill a long RPG.
Dude, I get, you get into town and there's a wizard and he's like, oh, the town's off. And I'm just like...
Come to the back of the town.
I'm just... I tried for 3 hours to get past the first hour.
That's what hurts the most about Reckoning, if anything, is...
Oh, yeah. No, it's just like that.
It's just everything else about this is interesting, but you're very...
It's just kind of off-brand...
Very boilerplate.
Generic fantasy.
Yeah.
And it does something else that's really the first one does something that's really bizarre, and I've never seen it do it. So Divinity Original Sin had Divinity Original Sin Classic, which was the original Kickstarter release, and then they came out with the Enhanced Edition later, right? Mm-hmm. The Enhanced Edition added voice acting to every single line of dialogue in the game, which is pretty impressive. Wow. It also added the ability that when you turn on a controller in the PC version, it turns into the console game. Like, every single element of the UI changes.
Yeah, that's a standard.
No, not like this. Not for these types of games. That's actually incredibly rare. And I don't mean the interface changes from, it uses a mouse cursor to uses a controller cursor. I mean, every single menu changes size and moves to different portions of the screen. Like, it's a completely different interface.
I see.
All the text becomes large because it assumes you're playing it on a television.
On a TV, yeah, okay.
It's fantastic. But... in the original game, you can talk to anybody. Any generic dude has things to say. Usually oh, what about the boat that burned down? The problem is that a lot of them have the exact same thing to say. And when they added full-blown voice acting, there's a boat burning down. You go up to it, you put it out. Everyone's like, yeah, good job. You put the boat out. That's great. Then you walk up and down the plank, and there are 3 guys standing next to each other that are all generic, sailor characters, that all have the exact same lines of dialogue, and they all have the exact same questions that you can ask them about the boat, and they all answer them in exactly the same way. And they actually went and got 3 different voice actors to do all 3 of them.
That's bizarre.
And you talk to them, and it creates the feeling of the biggest waste of time ever. It makes me hate the rest of the actual voice acting, because now I feel like it's all nothing.
Fake dynamic.
Yeah. So the second one came out, and I'll give you a couple little tidbits, but it is they tripled their writing staff, and as part of their Kickstarter, they hired Chris Avallone to help write their game.
Yeah, it seems like they need him.
Which, hey, guess what? One of the companion characters is written by Chris Avallone. Mm-hmm. You can immediately tell which one it is because it's the weird one.
Right.
He wrote Fane in this game. So they do it.
I think Willie is asking his previous.
Oh, Chris Avallone. He wrote all the good Fallouts, all the good old Baldur's Gate games. Every good game. He wrote Neverwinter Nights and KOTOR 2.
Oh, cool. Okay.
He's the guy.
Nice.
That wrote the good ones.
Yep. Okay. Got it.
And he recently left Obsidian, I believe, to teach, but he still comes on for writing projects. And you can immediately tell which one he wrote because he wrote the weird character. Everybody is... So they added a cool system where you can either create your own custom character or pick a predefined one. And anyone that you don't pick can be a party member later on. So it's as if you were playing I don't know, and you just... your main character can be any selectable party member.
Sure.
Like you could pick Tifa as
Secret of Mana.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They're all very interesting. The one that Avallone wrote is a skeleton who is dead and it has no problem being dead. And their racial abilities in this game are astonishingly interesting. So undead characters in this game can't go into towns without being murdered because they're skeletons.
Yeah.
So you have to kill the humanoids, steal their faces, and wear their faces.
Wear their flesh.
And when you do that, you gain their racial abilities. which are also really, really interesting.
Okay.
And all of the unique characters that you play with all have specialty tags that denote, like, oh, they have this backstory or have this backstory. And probably the most interesting version of this interaction is that you can play co-op, and as soon as you move just far enough away, it just goes split screen, and you can just go completely opposite.
Mm-hmm.
My girlfriend goes up to a little kid, and she is spec max into persuasion and charm and all these things, right? So she'll be the one talking to everybody. Talks to the kid starts to scream his ass off and bug eye and go crazy because her character is just a demon wearing a person's face, apparently, even though she's just a regular person, only for not all dialogue options to just get broken and the kid run away. I see the kid running by me and talk to them, and now they have unique dialogue of, is she gone? And you go, well, yeah, no. And then there's an entire dialogue tree set for, okay, well, I know them and they're cool, but you don't have to talk to them. And then all of their dialogue is now tinged by the fact that they're terrified. The amount of like reactivity and shit going on is astonishing. But more than that, early on, you see some magic cops, I guess you would call them, arguing over one of them helping people escape. Hey, cut your tongue off, you fucking liar. Goes to cut their tongue off. They go, I can't believe you would lie to this. And they just blow them up. They give them into goo. So what do? You walk over and you pick up their leg as an inventory item. Okay. That's weird. Later on, we get an elf in the party. Guess what? Elves can eat corpses to gain memories.
Whoa.
Feed the leg to your elf party member. They get the person's last thoughts, which show that they were actually super guilty and they were helping prisoners escape. And now we go around eating people's corpses in order to figure out parts of the... Like, every part of it is like a pen and paper game, like, actually digitized.
Right.
But, like, actually done so.
But it has that much freedom so far.
And the co-op in particular is astonishing because... When I say, because
now I want to test the limits of that,
right? You know when you can split apart in a co-op game and it gives you the vertical. That's not totally unknown, right?
Yeah.
What is that you can zone out. You don't have to be anywhere. You don't have to maintain in a zone. You can run a dungeon while somebody else does a side quest in town.
Cool. Okay.
It is absolutely absurdly separated.
Okay.
To the point where a character came up to me and only me offered me a quest excluding my co-op partner.
But you definitely can't progress beyond like major points.
Apparently, it is somewhat self-correcting in that there will always be some way to finagle. But I was reading the Kickstarter, the Kickstarter, because this is a Kickstarter game. I was reading the Kickstarter stuff. There are quests you can take to kill your co-op partner.
Okay. So hold on. Like, can you do...
Every button I pushed reacted to me logically in some way.
But, like, so you can go through, like, hours and hours of solo gameplay with someone else in the world.
And them doing their solo gameplay.
That's fucking
And then
cool,
I'll come to the end of my quest and I'll go, why is this person fucking dead? And they'll go, oh, because I fucking killed them.
Oh, that's interesting.
And the common interactions between all of those things were just so interesting.
Yeah.
And more than anything, and the first game had a lot of this kind of stuff, but it was so boring that I didn't give a shit. But this one actually is like, you know what I'm talking about. That feeling when you start a story-based game and in that first 5 minutes, whether or not it's got it or doesn't.
Yeah.
And this one, it's got it. And, like, man, a racial ability to eat corpses to gain their memory. Like, in some cases, I got whole scenes. In some cases, I got their last thoughts. And so, like, we went up to a party member and here's a sneaking mechanic. When you sneak in this game, sneaking is not a binary RPG mechanic.
Yeah.
All the sneaking stat does is decrease enemies' vision cones. Because it uses a Metal Gear style vision cone system. And it increases your speed.
I think
if you want to rob a guy, have one person talk to them and then have the other person physically go behind them to rob them.
Okay. Huh.
Because it's like like it is a pen and paper system realized digitally. And on top of all that, it has a Dungeon Master mode where it's a mod suite where you can
do your own thing,
where you can make your own campaigns and shit like that. It is so impressive.
I think like through second and third playthroughs, like you'll start to see some of the holes because it can't be.
Well, yeah, no. Well,
fully open,
in fact, the game is somewhat like it just came out on the 14th. Like on the controller interface, if you go into a map screen and hit a certain button, you break the interface and put into some debug menu. Like it is, it's a little rough around the edges.
But I just mean in terms of the freedom of like interaction and the dialogue trees and things like that. Like that's definitely something where it's going to take maybe a second or a third playthrough, and you'll start to see like, okay, that's not as open as I thought, because the implications of what you're describing sound incredible, and that's the kind of RPG everyone's ever wanted.
That's right.
Where it just becomes what you do, and doesn't have you on this kind of hallway. You know, it's interesting though, because like it kind of whatever. There was that what you're talking about with the co-op thing reminds me of a design idea I remember having of like, imagine if you played an RPG and like you had your outset town, but like you were connected with like, let's say, 5 other people.
Just 5.
And they all had their own town, and you shared the same planet.
Yeah.
And you worked your way around.
The mini MMO.
But when you got to that other town that the person started in, whatever they did was already affecting it, you know? And you didn't have to play in sync. You could just save and upload, and those effects would
somewhat similar to that.
Because going into a town that a player has already been through is fucking interesting, you know? That's a really cool thing.
And it's this kind of thing where it's like, I don't know if that's the case because it seems so mechanically in depth that it is like baffling. I go into the GAF thread. Every single post is asking of that entire thread is asking about a new mechanic that I don't understand.
Yeah.
Every single one is like, how does this work? And people go, what is that? What is that fucking thing?
I like that when you click on like community like pages on Steam and you just see like a list of questions that are like not even remotely your experience.
And on top of that, it also has some quality of life. So Pillars of Eternity is a fantastic game, but it is very much Baldur's Gate again. It's Baldur's Gate 3, right? And it has some little improvements here or there. This game has a lot of these massive improvements that I would never have even thought of, but it's there nonetheless, and it makes a huge difference. So, will you ever play one of these games where you get you can get a large party? And Matt, I'm sure you have. You get a large party and you like the character, but you hate their class. Like the Tales games, for example. Characters play a certain way, but maybe you hate their fucking guts.
No, that's a bad example.
Oh, is it?
I know you're saying Tales of because I played those games.
Because I know you're
always the sword guy.
You're always the sword guy, but you can control anybody at any time.
Yeah, I suppose. What I mean,
but I know what you mean. Yeah,
is you run Uli. You're going down the street and you meet Raceland and fucking what's his name? Karaman. But you already have a fighter in your party,
right.
And you're like, but you're my. But you don't. So as soon as you go to recruit a party member, they go, man, I'm pretty much great at everything. What kind of thing would you like me to do?
Cool.
And you just straight up pick their exact class.
Cool.
So do you like Red Prince? Guess what? You can always have Red Prince on your party because he can literally be any class in the entire game.
So does that mean that the game is not worth playing alone?
No. In fact, I found playing co-op was intimidating and freaky as shit because I'm the kind of person who loves to have total control over everything in my game world, only to find out I would go to loot things and they would already be looted.
Okay.
Or go to talk to people and they had already been talked to.
So it's that element of chaos.
So,
right.
like, I would say that this is the kind of game that is explicitly worth doing both ways for completely different reasons.
What happens if one person dies?
You can resurrect him.
But the other player has to do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
If everybody dies, you get a game over.
Okay.
If one person dies, I imagine either you can get out of battle or... Oh, that reminds me.
So, like, you have to stop what you're doing, make your way across the fucking map, and resurrect them.
Yeah.
Wow.
I imagine. Now, in our game, nobody died. Probably the weirdest thing is how combat is handled because you can split up. Combat initiates, like, a zone in which combat is happening. But if you're not in it, that's fine.
Just walk away.
So what ended up happening was one of us got into a fight, and the other was able to hit the sneak tab And because it's turn-based, the enemies were all pointed directly away and was able to sneak up for easy backstabs and just kill the entire fight straight out. Like, every time, it is such a broad system, and you keep expecting it to just really actually break in some way or be told, no, I can't do that. Didn't happen once. It is so impressive. I would advise everybody to check it out, if even for a couple hours, just to poke at it, just to like nudge it and see where you would think it would break, and it doesn't. It's awesome.
Okay, no, that's a pretty good sell. Was that it?
That's pretty much it.
Cool. I think because I remember when you were talking about Pillars as well, and like
Pillars is a very static game by comparison.
and it sounded interesting, but like this particular experience of co-op with people like super far apart from each other doing their own thing, not being forced onto the same screen, is awesome. That sounds fucking cool.
Everything that I saw it do was one of the most impressive versions of that mechanic I've ever seen, and it has more of them than I've ever seen in one of these games. I'm seeing people who are farther in the game than me saying it's probably the best one since Baldur's Gate 2, which is like an absurd thing to say, but like, okay, sure.
When you do that DM sort of mode and stuff, are you like a third player?
They're straight up in dialogue. Okay, so that I don't know. I believe you are, because when you play the regular game, the narrator is the DM.
Okay.
He's an unreliable narrator.
Well, anyway, worth investigating. What's also worth investigating is our sponsors this week.